The lights were already blazing, the crowd buzzing like a restless ocean, when a quiet figure stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage and time seemed to hold its breath. Before a single note was sung, something felt different, an invisible pull that made people lean closer to their screens. And right now, before this story unfolds, remember this feeling, because stories like this don't come often. If moments that give you goosebumps and remind you why dreams matter mean something to you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us until the very end, because what happened next shocked even the toughest judge in the room. Simon Cowell sat back in his chair, arms crossed, expression unreadable as always. He had heard thousands of voices, watched countless hopefuls walk on stage carrying big dreams and bigger nerves. Most were good. Some were great. Very few were unforgettable. Then the host announced the contestant, a Filipino man, modestly dressed, standing under the spotlight with eyes that carried both fear and determination. He introduced himself softly, his accent warm, his voice trembling just enough to reveal how much this moment meant. He spoke about growing up in a small home where music was his escape, how old Elvis Presley songs played on a battered radio were his comfort during hard days, how he sang not for fame but because singing made him feel alive. The judges smiled politely. The audience applauded kindly. Simon raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Elvis impersonators had come before, and most fell into the trap of imitation without soul. Simon leaned forward just slightly, ready to judge within seconds. The music began, slow, familiar, and then the man opened his mouth. What came out wasn't just a voice. It was a moment. Rich, deep, smooth, and hauntingly familiar, the sound rolled through the theater like thunder wrapped in velvet. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones dropped. Jaws slackened. Simon's arms uncrossed without him even realizing it. The Filipino singer didn't just sound like Elvis, he felt like him. Every note carried weight, every pause told a story. His voice held the ache of longing, the confidence of a king, and the vulnerability of a man who had fought his way through doubt. As he sang, flashes of his life seemed to echo in the music, nights practicing alone while others slept, rejection letters, people telling him his dream was unrealistic, that he was just another guy chasing a fantasy. Yet here he was, standing tall on one of the biggest stages in the world, proving that belief can travel farther than fear. Simon's face changed. The skepticism melted into disbelief, then into something rare, pure admiration. He shook his head slowly, as if trying to wake himself from a dream. By the time the final note rang out, the audience was already on its feet, applause crashing like waves. The singer closed his eyes, holding back tears, his chest rising and falling as he realized what had just happened. This wasn't just applause. This was acceptance. Simon leaned toward the microphone, paused, then let out a small laugh of shock. He admitted he hadn't expected this, not at all. He said he'd heard Elvis impressions before, but never one that captured both the sound and the soul. His words mattered, but it was his tone that said everything. For the first time that night, Simon Cowell truly couldn't believe his ears. The journey hadn't been easy. Back home, the singer had faced financial struggles, responsibilities that forced him to choose between survival and passion. There were moments he nearly gave up, moments when singing felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. But music kept calling him back. He sang at local events, small gatherings, anywhere that would let him share his voice. Every performance sharpened his craft, every setback strengthened his resolve. This stage was not luck, it was earned. As the competition moved forward, the pressure grew. Expectations rose. Critics waited for him to stumble. But instead of cracking, he grew stronger. Each performance peeled back another layer of his story, songs that spoke of loss, hope, love, and resilience. Viewers around the world connected to him not because he sounded like a legend, but because he reminded them of themselves, someone daring to dream beyond their circumstances. When the judges stood once more, the applause louder than before, the message was clear. Talent can come from anywhere. Greatness doesn't need permission. Dreams don't check your background before choosing you. Standing there under the lights, the Filipino Elvis wasn't just honoring a musical icon, he was carving his own place in history. And as the camera pulled back, capturing the standing ovation. One truth rang louder than any note sung that night: belief changes everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you to keep chasing what sets your soul on fire, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Because somewhere right now, another dreamer is waiting to be heard, and your support helps bring these powerful stories to the world. The theater lights dimmed just enough to make hearts beat faster, and the audience leaned forward without even realizing it. Somewhere between curiosity and disbelief, millions of viewers at home paused whatever they were doing, drawn in by a feeling they couldn't explain yet. This was one of those moments, the kind that sneaks up on you and refuses to let go. Before this story takes you there completely, remember one thing: moments like this deserve to be celebrated. If stories that inspire you, move you, and remind you that miracles still happen mean something to you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the very end, because what unfolded on that stage changed a life forever. Simon Cowell sat in his familiar chair, posture relaxed but eyes sharp. Decades in the music industry had trained him to recognize patterns within seconds. He had seen nerves, confidence, desperation, and raw ambition walk onto this stage countless times. Some contestants burned bright and vanished just as quickly. Others never even sparked. Tonight felt routine until it didn't. When the host announced the next contestant, a Filipino man with a quiet smile and humble posture stepped into the spotlight. There was nothing flashy about him. No dramatic entrance. Just a man, a microphone, and a dream he had been carrying for most of his life. He introduced himself softly, his voice gentle and respectful. He spoke about home, about growing up where dreams often had to wait behind responsibilities. Music, he said, was the one place where the world made sense. As a child, he would sit near an old radio, listening to classic songs that traveled thousands of miles to reach his small room. Elvis Presley's voice, rich and powerful, became more than just music. It became hope. He learned the songs not to imitate a legend, but to feel less alone. The audience listened politely, some nodding, others already deciding what they thought this performance would be. Simon raised an eyebrow. Elvis again, his expression seemed to say. He had heard it all before. Impersonators came with confidence and left with disappointment. Simon folded his arms, ready for another predictable performance. The judges exchanged quick glances. The music began, slow and familiar, a melody the world knew by heart. For a brief second, the singer closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and opened his mouth. The first note changed everything. It wasn't just accurate, it was alive. The sound filled the theater with a warmth that sent shivers through the crowd. Gasps echoed almost instantly. The voice carried depth, control, and emotion that couldn't be practiced into existence. It had to be lived. Simon's arms slowly dropped. His eyes widened just enough to betray his surprise. This wasn't imitation. This was connection. The Filipino singer wasn't copying Elvis, he was channeling the spirit of the music, letting it move through him like it always had. As he sang, the audience felt the story behind the sound. Every note held years of struggle, quiet sacrifices, and moments of doubt. He remembered singing softly at night so he wouldn't wake anyone. He remembered people smiling politely when he said he wanted to be a singer, then changing the subject. He remembered wondering if his dream was foolish. But he also remembered the joy, the feeling of freedom when he sang, the way music lifted the weight of reality, even if only for a few minutes. The judges were no longer judges. They were listeners, caught in the same spell as everyone else. The camera cut to Simon, who shook his head slowly, as if trying to process what he was hearing. The voice wasn't just strong, it was controlled, confident, and deeply emotional. When the singer reached the chorus, the audience erupted into applause mid-performance, unable to contain themselves. Some wiped away tears. Others simply stared, stunned. The final note lingered in the air long after the music stopped. Silence followed, heavy, powerful silence, before the entire theater exploded into a standing ovation. The Filipino singer stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed, eyes glistening. He bowed his head, clutching the microphone, trying to absorb the reality of what had just happened. This wasn't just applause. This was validation. Simon leaned forward, his expression now completely transformed. He spoke honestly, admitting that he had expected something ordinary and instead heard something extraordinary. He said the voice wasn't just technically impressive, it carried authenticity, something you couldn't fake. Coming from Simon Cowell, those words meant everything. The singer nodded, tears finally falling, his dream no longer something distant but something real and tangible. But this moment didn't come from nowhere. Behind the scenes was a life shaped by perseverance. Growing up, the singer faced financial struggles that forced him to work early, putting dreams on pause more than once. There were days when singing felt selfish, when survival demanded all his energy. Yet music never left him. He sang at family gatherings, community events, anywhere that welcomed his voice. Every small stage prepared him for this one. Every rejection toughened his spirit. As the competition continued, the pressure intensified. Now he wasn't just a hopeful contestant, he was a favorite. Expectations can crush even the strongest performers, but instead of shrinking, he grew. He chose songs that mattered, performances that reflected his journey. Each appearance revealed more of who he was beyond the voice, a man shaped by humility, gratitude, and unshakable passion. Viewers around the world connected deeply with his story. Messages poured in from people who saw their own struggles reflected in his journey. Parents, workers, dreamers who had set aside their passions recognized themselves in him. He became proof that it's never too late, that talent paired with persistence can break any barrier. When he stood on stage again, stronger and more confident, the applause felt different. It wasn't just excitement, it was respect. He had earned every second of it. The judges praised not only his voice but his growth, his ability to make classic songs feel personal and alive. Simon, once skeptical, now smiled openly whenever the singer took the stage. As the season moved toward its climax, the Filipino Elvis understood something profound. Winning wasn't the only victory. Being heard, being seen, and inspiring others was already more than he had ever imagined. The boy who once sang quietly by a radio was now standing under global lights, reminding the world that dreams don't belong to a single country, background, or language. On the final night, as the crowd roared and the lights shimmered, one message rang clear above all else: belief can carry you farther than fear ever could. The journey wasn't about sounding like a king, it was about becoming one in his own right. And as the curtain fell, millions were left inspired, reminded that sometimes the most powerful voices come from the most unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you to hold on to what you love no matter how impossible it seems, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this deserve to be shared, and somewhere out there, another dream is waiting for its moment to be heard.